Liberals turn on Trudeau en masse and say that he's living in a delusional false reality. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Well, after yesterday, I don't think anybody can deny that Trudeau's leadership is really in question. And of course, the Conservatives are calling for an election, while Jagmeet Singh is just calling for a resignation, and they will call an election, but not until the end of February or early March. I wonder why that is. Even some Liberals, matter of fact, probably a lot of Liberals, are coming out against Trudeau. And today, when questioned by Vassy, Wayne Long said this.
Look, you've been one of the more vocal public members of caucus asking the Prime Minister to reconsider and step aside. And this has been going on for months.
Yeah.
Do you detect anything discernibly different this time around?
Yes.
You do?
You know, I was told back in June and back in October that, you know, you're backbenchers, many of you aren't reoffering, but you really need, you know, a Nancy Pelosi or somebody like that. Well, Chrystia Freeland is our Nancy Pelosi in my.
What? They want a Nancy Pelosi? What kind of idiot would want a Nancy Pelosi in Canada? She's terrible.
My books. Obviously, she's a minister. She was at the Prime Minister's side, you know, for really over 10 years. A very Trudeau loyalist. And for her to come out with a letter like that, as blunt as it was, as direct as it was, and in particular the timing, really, I think, was delivered that way to inflict maximum damage. It's a vote of non-confidence in the Prime Minister. It's a vote of non-confidence in our government. And from our standpoint, you know, we kind of learn as we go along. And I think the best intentions back when I did what I did in June, and obviously we did what we did in October. But there's kind of a new spirited movement amongst MPs. Clearly, we had 23, I'd say 23 to 30 before. I would say that's upwards of 45, 50 now.
45 to 50 Liberals in the caucus don't want Justin Trudeau to stay on. They want him to resign. But would they support a non-confidence motion? I don't think so. But we'll see.
The Prime Minister needs to step down. He needs to step down immediately for us to have any chance in the next election.
Now, although I do agree with Wayne Long on at least one thing, that Trudeau needs to go, I disagree with him totally. I think he's delusional if he thinks that they will have any chance in the next election, even without Justin Trudeau. It's just not going to happen.
Is your sense that there are members of cabinet who also want to see the Prime Minister gone?
Yes.
There
is. I believe there are several. I've had some conversations. Obviously, I'm not going to divulge who I've talked with, but there is no question that there is concern in cabinet. You know, I was amazed yesterday to see ministers come out and say everything's good and we stand behind the Prime Minister, when I think a lot of them absolutely know that to be very different. And you know what, to you, to all Canadians, to our cabinet, I'm calling on all of you to step up, do the right thing, do what needs to be done. We need more ministers to speak up. We know what's happening to our party. I mean, we've been mired in the polls, basically third or fourth now for a year to a year and a half. We are not moving, you know, whether it's foreign interference or security clearance or the GST holiday we've had, we're not moving in the polls. And the problem is there's a visceral dislike for the Prime Minister. He needs to accept that.
Do you think he will?
I think, to be blunt, he's delusional right now. I think that he's living in a false reality, and I think it's incumbent on those around him. It's a disservice to the Prime Minister that they're not telling him what Canadians are thinking or feeling. And
so Trudeau's delusional and he's living in a false reality. Well, we probably all could have told you that, but now it's coming from Liberals themselves. They're realizing just that Trudeau's basically a nutcase and he needs to go. But enough of this fool, because he clearly thinks that the Liberals have a chance at re-election. Let's go to the last question period of this session and see how Andrew Scheer described yesterday.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
What a
mess. Yesterday was a gong show at the bottom of a dumpster fire, wrapped up in a cluster. The finance minister resigns, the prime minister hides all day and then has to beg his MPs not to fire him. But the worst news, buried underneath it all, was a devastating gut punch to Canadian taxpayers. A $62 billion deficit smashing through the already insane $40 billion guardrail. Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
Well, don't hold back, Andrew. Tell us what you really think. I think that actually described yesterday quite well. And of course, Dominic LeBlanc gets up and says something completely off the rails.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking the Opposition House Leader for his heartfelt congratulations on my new role. I want to tell him, Mr. Speaker, and all Canadians, that our government is very proud of the fall economic statement that we made public yesterday. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. It speaks to a declining debt to GDP ratio, the best in the G7. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't finished supporting Canadians, something the Conservatives aren't interested in doing.
More like they're not finished screwing Canadians. And proud of that? How can they be proud of that? It blew through their guardrail, their $40 billion guardrail, by something like 53%. No, that's nothing to be proud of. And calling it a statement is a bit of a misnomer as well. There was no statement attached to that. That's more like a body dump. Somebody tapped the brakes just long enough for somebody else to open the door and toss the corpse of our economy out and then speed away. No, that's nothing to be proud of. But let's see how Andrew Scheer responds to that.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the new finance minister for being the fourth finance minister in a 24-hour period. But it's the same old talking points. What they did yesterday was smash through that $40 billion guardrail. What does that mean? It now means that Canadians have to pay back all that money with interest, and 43 cents of every dollar you earn now has to go to pay the tax burden. More money to bankers and bondholders. In fact, the government's now spending more on the interest on that debt than on health care. But the Prime Minister doesn't care. He doesn't worry about where the money comes from. He's never had to worry about that. So why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
Now, there was just more of that back and forth throughout question period, so I'm not going to bore you with playing any more of those clips. However, I will play one more. This is how Jagmeet Singh wants to deal with this crisis or this situation.
People are right to be angry. We've got a Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than he is in protecting Canadians against a threat.
The Speaker had to stop it there because so many people were laughing he couldn't hear Jagmeet Singh. Yeah, the Prime Minister is worried about his own job. Jagmeet, I think you're the one who's really worried about your job, at least until late February.
People are right to be angry. They've got a Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than defending Canadians against Trump. We've got a Prime Minister who's failed to defend workers from rich CEOs that the Conservatives love, who continue to rip off Canadians and drive up the cost of food and homes. The Prime Minister has failed. For New Democrats, it's always workers first and not CEOs. And not CEOs who the Conservatives want to defend. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge he has failed? He has to quit.
That's a pretty pathetic spattering of applause there, Jagmeet. But of course, we all know that you're not really serious. Now, yesterday or earlier today, maybe it was earlier today, the NDP House Leader actually went on record as saying that after late February or early March, then we will consider bringing down the government. But we're going to give them until that time in order to, do right and make everything right. Yeah, that's a bunch of BS, of course. And Jagmeet Singh was asked yesterday, I think, after a question period, and he kept on repeating the same thing. Well, everything is on the table. Nothing is off the table. but he wouldn't explain what that was. He just said, every option is on the table. We don't believe you. So the drama in the House is on hold until late January, and we'll find out then, I think, if Trudeau's ready to step down. A lot of pundits are thinking that he's going to prorogue Parliament. In fact, Tom Mulcair, he thinks that Trudeau will prorogue Parliament and there will be a leadership convention. But others, they believe that Trudeau wants to hang on until the bitter end, until the election. Let's go and see what Tom Mulcair had to say.
Very intense and fast-moving day yesterday. Justin Trudeau today continuing to face calls to resign, but it still doesn't look like he will answer to those calls. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are he's buying himself a little bit of time. This, as you correctly say, is the last day of Parliament. They don't come back till January 27th. Between now and then, he can take his own time to come up with a proper decision. I think that one of the obvious opportunities for him is later in January for him to pull the emergency brake, which is called prorogation. You basically dissolve Parliament. You have to you come back when you have a throne speech, but in between the two, well, perhaps the Liberals could have a leadership race, something like that. I think that that's where we're headed, Akshay, because even though Mr. Trudeau has yet to say that he's resigning, I think it's quite clear that he's not leading the Liberals into the next campaign. How can you do that when very few of your ministers support you and now close to 50 members of your caucus are asking you to leave? So I don't think that it's realistic that he's going to lead the Liberals into the next campaign, but he's bought himself a bit of time. Likely prorogation, leadership, resignation. That's probably the order. You're right also that there were some very bizarre mixed signals from different parties. I think that Poilievre had a very good day. He adopted a very statesman-like tone, very prime ministerial, went hard, as is usual self, but I mean, he was very, very controlled. And I think that people appreciated that and picked up on it. Mr. Singh's musings were very difficult to follow. On the one hand, he said he wants Mr. Trudeau to resign, which would indicate that he wants an election or a change of government. And then in the next breath, he said, well, he hasn't decided whether or not he's going to continue to vote confidence in Justin Trudeau. So it was very difficult to follow.
Very difficult to follow. Well, I'm not sure if he's all that difficult to follow as far as his thought process. Maybe his words are difficult to follow, but his thought process is fairly readable. He wants to stay on until he gets his pension. His 2.9 pension, I guess it's been estimated at now. So I don't think that he will bring down the government, but will Trudeau call an election? Yeah, I don't know about that either. A lot of people are saying he'll stick around until the next election, or he'll bring his party into the next election. But a lot more people are saying now that prorogation is a possibility. I think that the next month is going to be very interesting, but that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Also, please join me on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube and, if everything goes right, on Rumble for my live stream where you're invited to join in on the conversation. Finally, if you live on Vancouver Island and you want to get your firearms license, also known as a PAL, I teach the required courses. And so if you want to take a course from me, there are links in the description of this video to my website where you can sign up for one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.